You recently wrote an article about burnout in ministry, symptoms, causes, and preventions. And hey,
which
as
is
a
not so
pastor,
fun.
no, no, it's not. As a pastor, I get it. I mean, I've walked with people who have been through that season of burnout. And honestly, I think I've been through burnout before. So, what inspired you to write this article?
Yeah. So I'm, like I said, went to Bible college, went to seminary. My closest friends are pastors and missionaries spread out around the country and around the world. And the heart and focus of our practice is really caring for ministers and missionaries. We care for a lot of different folks, but they just hold a special place in our heart. And a lot of what we see with folks that come in that are ministers, missionaries coming in for counseling, that there's an aspect of burnout that's a part of it that has gotten a lot of times to the place where it's really affecting their marriage, affecting their family life, and it's certainly affecting their ability to find joy in the work that they're doing and be fully effective in the ministry that they're engaging. That there's just this kind of dark shadow that's hanging over the top of their head, or cloud hanging over the top of their head a little bit, and they're trying to figure out what to do with this. And so it was on my heart to write something of a preventative nature, right, to kind of get out ahead of and in front of the those realities, so that maybe we can get some help before it gets that
Mhm.
bad.
Yeah, so we're dealing with ministry, but honestly, maybe somebody who's not in ministry, maybe they're leading a team or a business. Is
Mhm.
this article for them?
Absolutely. I mean, we all face that. And if you're in a context where there's high stress and
Hmm.
there's expected performance and engagement, and particularly if it's in a helping capacity or a leadership capacity in some way, where you're carrying not only the weight and load of your own life and responsibilities, but you're shouldering the burden of a team and others as well, so you're taking on that weight. It's something that you're going to face as well.
Yeah, yeah, and it's something I've faced, something I've watched people in ministry face. But before we get into anything else, let's talk specifically, um, mainly in the context of ministry, since that's what the article is for. What is burnout?
So burnout is the kind of a state of mental and emotional exhaustion and fatigue, right? It's like where
Hmm.
we get on this edge of moving into depression from just a constant grind of the stress and emotional burden of the work that we're engaging in. And what happens is we get in this space where we lose our drive, lose
Hmm.
our enjoyment of things that we normally enjoy in our work, in our engagement, that the day begins to look like drudgery as opposed to something we're excited about. And we're just tired before the day even begins, because we're just in that
Hmm.
space of, instead of being excited and energized, we're just like, I don't even
Yeah.
know if I want to do this anymore.
So Josh, in your article, you draw out a distinction between three stages of burnout. Describe each of these: stressed, overwhelmed, and crispy.
Yeah. So I think we all know what it's like to be stressed, right? That's when you're in a season of your work, your ministry that you're engaging, and it's just weighing heavy. There's a lot of stuff happening. Maybe there's conflict that you're facing and dealing with. Maybe there's budgetary struggles that you're dealing with. Maybe there's just a lot of needs, maybe loss or tragedy, or going through a COVID season where there's so much change and shift
Mhm.
and tension in the country, in every congregation, and navigating a pandemic. I mean, there's a season of it being unusually stressful, right?
Mm.
Like beyond just kind of the day-to-day normal grind that's a part of work and ministry and life. It's kind of taken it up a level, and we're in this stress place. And so everybody faces that. It's just a part of the ebb and flow, seasons of life, challenges that come up. But if we get stuck there, right, like if it's a prolonged season and it just like keeps coming, it ebbs, but it doesn't flow, right? Like there's not any relief or reprieve from it over an extended period of time. The effect of that is we get exhausted of our mental and emotional resources. Like the gas tank eventually hits, zero, or starts hitting the little yellow light pops in that it's getting low, right? And that's that overwhelmed place. It's like it goes from, hey, it's a stressful season, but I'm leaning in and I've got this, and it can roll with the punches, to back on our heels a little bit. And we're like, man, this is getting to be a bit much. Like if this doesn't let up, like this can't keep going on indefinitely like this. I'm not gonna make it. And if it doesn't relent the season, and if nothing changes and we just kind of keep rolling, that's when we start getting crispy around the edges.
Yeah, if I can, I can dive in a little bit into that because I know what that's like. When I read through how you described crispy,
Yeah.
like I was like, hey, that was me at one point. I remember being in an airport one day with my family on vacation, and all of a sudden I just felt this overwhelming feeling. Like I'm not claustrophobic, but I felt claustrophobic. And so I told my wife, I was like, what is going on? And she
Yeah.
told me to go to the doctor, and the doctor's like, dude, you had a panic attack. I'm like, no, I'm strong.
Yeah.
But what it was something inside of me was
Mm,
telling me
mm,
you're doing too much, you're experiencing burnout. And it's like
yeah.
you said, the spouse was there the whole time, like, Matthew, you need to slow down. So let's dive into some of the causes. And this is probably something we could be at all day long. But what are some of the causes of burnout, and particularly in ministry?
Yeah. So some of the basic stuff is so basic and simple that it gets neglected, right? That
Hmm.
it's so common sense or so right in front of us that it just gets overlooked. But there's just things like basic self-care. You're paying attention to what it is that you're eating, right? That tends to, as you get into those stressed seasons, like it's fast paced, and eating habits tend to go out the window. Our good eating habits tend to go out the window, and it's
Hmm.
more drive through. It's more just kind of eating on the run as we run from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. And so our body stops getting the regular healthy nutrition that it
Hmm.
needs. There's sleep, right? We talked about how God designed us to need something like 7 to 9 hours, depending on your body makeup, in order to be fully healthy and functional. But it's just starts to get cut into because we're running here, running there. Schedule doesn't make a lot of time for it, and you're still trying to balance family. And so that turns into 6 and 5 hours. And then we're feeling maybe stressed, and that keeps us up, and we're getting 4 or 5 hours.
Hmm.
So the early warning indicators are really just some of these basic needs of the body that God designed us with start to get neglected, which then begin to compound the effect of the stress that we're experiencing. And as the body gets fatigued, there's this really cool Vince Lombardi quote that I love that says, "Fatigue makes cowards of us all."
Hmm.
And as our body gets worn down and fatigued, then we start to get more overwhelmed because we're facing the challenges that keep coming, and we have less resources to face them with,
Hmm.
mentally and emotionally, physically, relationally. There's neglect that starts happening because we're busy and we're disconnected and we're irritable. So there starts to be disconnect with a spouse. We're not connecting with friends because we're too busy with trying to get caught up. And it just starts to set in. So those are like the yellow flags that
Hmm.
you can start to identify right off the bat, that I think I'm headed down a road that's not going to end so well for me.
Hmm. Yeah, so let's talk about some ways we can prevent, like what are some tangible things that we can do to prevent or treat burnout? I mean, I could tell you some things I've done. Some of the things
Yeah.
I knew I had to stop doing was chasing after the wrong metrics,
Mm-hmm.
like living for the applause of others. That's
Mm-hmm.
something I'm still working on.
Yeah.
I had a mentor tell me to calendar every single thing, and he
Mm-hmm.
meant it. And so I
Mm-hmm.
calendar gym time, Bible study, prayer. Every little thing is on my calendar
Yes.
because hours are something we can't get back. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe you have some ways we can prevent or treat burnout. Would you help us out with that?
Yeah, totally. Those are great preventative pieces, right? And they're
Yeah.
great ways to begin to get on track, making sure that we're putting into the schedule first the things that matter most, not just having the schedule get filled by what's
Mhm.
urgent. The tyranny of the urgent is a real thing, and it will rob our life of the things that are really important and really matter, because it will constantly fill our schedule with the things that are calling out for our attention at any given point in time. And so those are really kind of, again, tactical, practical things that we can do to be aware of what it is that we are, um, uh, just how we're budgeting, how we're spending our time, how we're engaging. Are we taking care of our body the way that we need to? There's this whole nother level though that's important to pay attention to also, right? That the kind of unconscious motivators that are there, right? And you named and identified one with the mentor in your life,
Yeah.
saying, man, that piece of needing the applause, needing the kind of praise, kind of pursuing that, that goes beyond the tactical practical skills, because you can know what to do and being able to do it are two different things,
Hmm.
right? And when we find ourselves unable to do the things that we know we should do and would help for one reason or another, like, yeah, I know I should do that. Yeah, I should be eating differently. Yeah, I should be getting the sleep. Yeah, I know date night's important. Yeah, Sabbath is there, and I know I'm neglecting that. When we know the things to be doing, but for whatever reason, we can't seem to do it,
Hmm.
that's when we really need to get with somebody that can help hold up a mirror and help us identify our blind spots,
Yeah.
right? We don't know what we don't know, and being able to connect with somebody that can help us unpack that and go, why is it that we can't do the things that we know to do? What is it that's underneath that, that's kind of driving that for us? What's that about? And addressing those things then enables us to be able to do what it is we already know that we need to do.
Hmm.
We just haven't been able to.
Yeah. And one thing that you mentioned, if you want to elaborate on, is you talked about the need for mentors,
Mm-hmm.
peers, and also the power of mentoring others. Uh,
Right.
yeah. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, the three different kinds of relationships that everybody needs in their life, right?
Yeah.
That we need these relationships that we allow others to pour into us, that we're, humbly authentic with, that we're vulnerable with, that we allow into the hard spaces in our life, the good, the bad, the ugly, able to uh, be with us in those things and help us grow and mature. They've been down the road that we're traveling on, and they kind of know some of the things that lay ahead in a way that, if we're wise, we can learn from their experience instead of having to learn every lesson ourselves.
Hmm.
Like, we need those mentors in our life. We also need peers, right? We need folks that we can do life together, that are in the same station of life, that have kids and careers and life that are kind of in the same place, where we can do what scriptures say, just spur each other on to godliness, right? It's like we're shoulder to shoulder, we're doing life together. This is our support team, our network, our friends that we can Sabbath and rest and play together with, and that we can be there to support as they're in those stressful seasons. They can be there to support us. We're swapping kids so that we can alternate date nights and be able to get out with our spouse, and are encouraging each other to do that sort of thing. Right? It's that peers doing life together.
Yeah.
And then we need those that we're pouring out into, right?
Hmm.
Those whom we're down the road a little bit further from where they're at, right? And doesn't matter where you're at in life, there's some kid that's, a few years behind you walking the road that you traveled just not too long ago, right? And they too need somebody
Yeah.
willing to put a hand around their shoulder and say, you're going to make it. It's going to be okay. Yes, this is hard because it's hard. You're doing great. And to love on, encourage, challenge, like that's a very healthy thing and way God made us, both to give and to receive.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one thing I've found. It's that sense of what gives me energy is pouring into others. And I tell you,
Mm-hmm.
if you could find what gives you energy, man, that'll be huge in that preventative measures when it comes to
Absolutely.
burnout. Yeah. Over the past few years, and the headlines have made this available to everyone. We've seen pastors, lay leaders commit suicide or have stepped down from
Yeah.
ministry.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to someone for a minute, maybe who's on the edge of a cliff,
Yeah.
and they're feeling the weight of it.
Yeah.
What's a final piece of advice that you'd give someone who may be experiencing burnout or is on that edge?
Totally. Yeah. I just want to say that there are great number of powerful men and women of God
Mm,
that have changed the world in incredible ways, that have stood right on that edge that you're standing at,
mhm,
that you're not alone in that space. And where you're at right now doesn't define you and doesn't define your future. And this is not the way that it has to be. And that there are people who want to love on you and make space for you and figure this thing out with you.
mm,
That I'm one of those people. We got a team of people on our team that's our calling in life. And to be able to be there and put our arm around you and figure this thing out together so that it can be different, you can feel different, your family can be different, and the calling that God has on your life, the impact that He wants to continue to use you for, can be fulfilled in full. And so, yeah, I know it's overwhelming right now and it
mhm.
doesn't feel like it's going to end, but there's a way through this. There is a way through this.
Yeah, that's good. I want to encourage everyone to check out the article on burnout, and we'll have it linked in the notes below.